She said it like it slipped out, soft, unguarded, and far too honest. You always were my favorite distraction. It wasn't the kind of line you expect to hear from someone like her. Not from the woman who carried her age like it was poetry, every movement deliberate, every silence saying more than her words ever did. She stood by the open window of the nearly empty classroom, the last traces of sunset turning her hair the color of burnt gold. The papers on her desk fluttered in the faint breeze. She didn't look at me when she said it, not right away. But her voice had that tilt in it, the one that sounds like a secret trying not to escape. I'd come back for something small, a notebook I'd forgotten, maybe on purpose. She was gathering her things, half turned toward me, her glasses balanced low on her nose. The day had already emptied out, the echo of students fading down the hall. Only the two of us remained, caught in that strange stillness between what's said and what shouldn't be. She glanced up then, finally meeting my eyes. For a moment neither of us spoke. It wasn't silence, it was something heavier. Something that pressed against the ribs and slowed the air. Her eyes were unreadable, the kind you look at once and never stop remembering. There was kindness in them, yes, but also something else. Weariness. A hint of loneliness she kept perfectly hidden behind the kind of smile that said I'm fine even when she wasn't. I told myself I was just grateful, that she'd helped me through more than grades. Through the noise, the confusion, the years that felt like static. But standing there, watching her tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, I realized gratitude was a lie I told myself to stay safe. The light shifted again. The sky dimmed. She walked past me, close enough that her sleeve brushed my arm. Just fabric against fabric, but it felt too much, like the world tilted a fraction and forgot to steady itself. You shouldn't still be here, she said, almost teasing, but her voice trembled at the edge of control. Neither should you, I answered before I could stop myself. That made her pause. Her hand hovered near the door, then dropped to her side. The air smelled faintly of chalk and her perfume, something subtle, like cedar and rain. She turned halfway toward me again, eyes soft but searching. You always have something to say, don't you? I shrugged. Not when it matters. Her mouth curved, almost a smile, almost not. The kind of expression you feel before you see. She didn't reply, but her eyes did, that quiet, dangerous language between people who know they shouldn't understand each other as much as they do. My pulse wouldn't slow. Neither would hers. I could tell by the way she took a breath before looking away, steadying herself on the edge of the desk. The world outside was dissolving into night. The clock ticked, too loud. A paper slid off the stack beside her, and I bent down to pick it up. When I straightened, our hands brushed. Just a second, skin against skin, but it left a trail of heat, sharp and electric, that neither of us dared acknowledge. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something else, something real, but the hallway light flickered, footsteps echoed outside the door, and she froze. Her gaze snapped to mine. Half a heartbeat. Half a breath. And then, the door creaked open. The door opened just enough for a shadow to slip in, a colleague of hers, looking for forgotten papers. A brief exchange. Polite smiles. The kind that erase entire moments. When the door shut again, it left behind the echo of what almost happened. She busied herself, rearranging pens that didn't need arranging. I waited, half leaning on a desk, unsure whether to speak or to leave. The silence between us wasn't comfortable anymore. It was fragile, ready to break if either of us breathed too deeply. You should go, she said finally. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the strain beneath it. Yeah, I murmured though I didn't move. Her hand brushed her temple as if to shake something off, a thought, maybe a memory. That's when I saw the faint indent on her ring finger. Not recent, but not long gone either. The kind of mark skin forgets to heal from. I'd never asked about her life outside these walls. But I'd noticed the way she paused before mentioning weekends. The way she laughed at jokes that weren't funny, just to fill silence. She looked at me again, as if reading the thoughts I was trying too hard to hide. You think too much, she said. Maybe, I admitted. Maybe that's why I stay late. That earned the smallest laugh from her, real this time, the sound soft enough to ache. You shouldn't, she whispered. People talk. That was the first time she'd said people like it mattered. As if the world outside this room could undo something it didn't even know existed. Maybe it could. She sat down on the edge of the desk, the light above her flickering. For a second, she didn't look like my teacher. Just a woman, tired, graceful, trying not to show how much she missed being looked at like that. You remind me of when things were simpler, she said. Before what? Before I learned to measure everything I say. I wanted to ask what made her stop, who made her stop, but instead I said nothing. The words would have broken the spell, and I didn't want to lose it. She shifted close enough that I could feel the warmth of her knee through my jeans. She didn't move away immediately. The scent of her perfume was lighter now, fading, but it lingered, like she did. My hand twitched, a reflex, a mistake. Her gaze fell to it, then to me. Either of us spoke. Then, she reached out, brushing a bit of chalk dust from my sleeve. A small gesture. Harmless, probably. But her fingers stayed there, just long enough to say what neither of us dared to. You should go, she said again, softer this time. I nodded. Didn't move. She looked away, then back, eyes bright, unreadable. You always were my favorite distraction, she said again, but this time it sounded less like a confession and more like a warning. Still, when I finally turned to leave, I felt her hand graze mine one last time, not by accident. A touch that said don't forget this. A pause that promised there'd be more to remember. It was supposed to be a normal day, no after hours, no unspoken moments. Just a simple question about a project I could have easily asked over email. But I went anyway. She was at her desk, reading something with her glasses halfway down her nose again. The light from the window caught the silver in her hair, and for a second, I forgot why I'd come. You shouldn't be here, she said without looking up. Probably not, I replied, closing the door anyway. Her sigh was quiet, but it filled the room. You don't make this easy. Neither did she. She set her pen down and finally looked at me, really looked. There was a kind of softness there, the kind that can undo someone if they aren't careful. I tried not to stare, but I failed. What is it you think you're doing? She asked. Trying not to say the wrong thing. Her mouth curved at that, a restrained smile that made my chest tighten. Then say nothing. But silence only made everything louder. The sound of her fingers tapping the desk. The slow draw of her breath. The space between us that kept shrinking each time one of us moved. She stood, brushing past me to reach a shelf. I turned at the same time. Our shoulders grazed, not much, but enough. The air shifted, heavy and sharp. Either of us stepped back. I could see the small scar at the corner of her mouth now, the faint line of tiredness beneath her eyes. She looked human in a way she never let anyone see. People already notice things, she murmured. Let them. Her head tilted, not in amusement this time, but warning. You don't understand what that means for me. Maybe not, I said. But I know what it means for me. That stopped her. Her breath hitched. A paper slid off the desk again. We both reached for it, hands colliding. This time, either of us pulled away. There was nothing dramatic, no music, no perfect lines, just the quiet rhythm of two people trying too hard to pretend they weren't thinking the same thing. Her thumb brushed the back of my hand, slow, hesitant. My pulse stumbled. She opened her mouth, maybe to say my name, maybe to stop herself, but her phone buzzed. The sound cracked the air. A message lit up on her screen. Dinner tonight? The name was unfamiliar. Her eyes darted to it, then to me. You should go, she said again, but softer, almost pleading. I nodded, though my feet didn't move. You don't have to explain, I said. She looked down, as if she wanted to believe me. I know, she whispered. When I finally turned toward the door, she caught my wrist, just for a second. It wasn't enough to pull me back, but it wasn't nothing either. Her hand lingered, warm, trembling, and when she let go, the air between us didn't settle. It felt like something had shifted, something neither of us could undo, no matter how much we wanted to. Rain started before sunset, the kind that doesn't fall hard, just enough to paint the windows with quiet streaks. I told myself I wouldn't go. That I'd let the distance do what it's supposed to, make sense of things. But by the time the streetlights flickered on, I was already standing outside her door. She opened it without surprise, as if she'd been expecting me, or maybe she just stopped being surprised by me altogether. "You shouldn't be here," she said, voice low, steady. "I know." Her eyes searched mine, then drifted past me to the rain. "You'll catch a cold. That's not what you're worried about." A pause. She stepped aside. I entered. The warmth of her apartment hit first, soft lamplight, faint scent of jasmine tea, papers scattered on the table. Everything looked like her, composed, but quietly undone. She crossed her arms, trying to keep distance between us that neither of us respected anymore. "Whatever this is," she began, "it doesn't end well." "Then why open the door?" That landed harder than I meant it to. Her breath faltered. "Because you knock like you mean it," she said, almost under her breath. The sound of rain filled the space between us. I moved closer, not enough to touch, just enough that I could feel the heat radiating from her skin. She didn't move away. Her hair was slightly damp at the edges, a few loose strands falling against her cheek. I reached up before I could stop myself, brushing one back. She froze, not in rejection, but in stillness. "You shouldn't, I know." My hand lingered a moment too long. Her eyes closed, just for a second, as if steadying herself. When she opened them again, they looked different, brighter, braver. "You think this is simple," she said. "That it's just timing, or age, or no," I interrupted. "I think it's real." That word changed everything. She stepped closer, slowly, as if fighting something invisible. Our reflections blurred together in the rain-slick window behind her. "You don't know what I've had to lose to keep my life small enough to control," she whispered. "Maybe that's why you notice everything you're missing." Her breath caught, half a sob, half a laugh. Then, she was near enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath against my neck. "You shouldn't say things like that," she murmured. "Then tell me to stop." She didn't. The moment stretched, her hand on my chest, my fingers brushing her wrist. Every heartbeat seemed louder than the rain. Then she whispered, "You always make me forget who's supposed to be in control." Her words trembled, but her body leaned closer, almost against mine. Our foreheads nearly touched. The world outside could have fallen away and I wouldn't have noticed. And then, a soft knock at the door. Both of us froze. Her hand dropped, her eyes wide, the spell cracking but not gone. "Don't," she whispered, as if saying it to both of us. The knock came again, louder this time. Whatever happened next, it wouldn't be something we could take back. The second knock wasn't gentle this time, firm, deliberate, the kind that doesn't wait long for an answer. She stiffened, eyes darting to the door. I saw the pulse jump in her throat. Without looking at me, she whispered, "Don't say anything." I moved back, just enough to blend into the dim corner of the room. She straightened her hair, her blouse, and opened the door a few inches. A man's voice, calm, familiar. "You weren't answering your phone." The same name I'd seen on her screen earlier. He stepped in before she could stop him, tall, older, wearing the kind of confidence that comes from being used to belonging. "I was grading," she said quickly. "You didn't need to come by. You left this." He held up a phone charger. A perfect excuse, perfectly rehearsed. But his gaze drifted, to the teacup beside mine on the table. To the damp umbrella by the door. His eyes narrowed, calculating. "You have company?" Her body tensed. "A student stopped by earlier," she said too fast. "Just left." He nodded slowly, scanning the room like he didn't quite believe it. "Right." Then softly, "You know, people talk, Claire." She flinched at the use of her first name in that tone, quiet, claiming. He left a moment later, but not before glancing toward the corner where I stood. Just for a heartbeat. Not long enough to see me, but enough to make my skin crawl with the possibility that he did. When the door finally closed, she leaned against it, exhaling like she'd been holding her breath for hours. "Who was that?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Her hands trembled slightly as she pressed them against the wood. "Someone I should have let go of years ago," she said finally. "But letting go isn't always clean. You could have told me." "Told you what?" "That I'm not as untangled as you think?" She turned toward me then, eyes bright, raw. "Would it have changed anything?" I hesitated. "Maybe not." Her laughter broke, bitter and small. She stepped past me, brushing my arm as she moved toward the window. The touch was accidental, maybe, but it sent a shock through me anyway. The rain hadn't stopped. It beat harder now, like the world outside was in on the secret. "He heard something," she whispered. "He always knows when I'm lying." "Then tell him the truth." "Which truth?" she asked, spinning around. "That I can't stop thinking about you? That every time you walk away, I have to remind myself why I shouldn't follow?" Her voice broke on the last word. She pressed her palm against her mouth, but it was too late. The confession hung between us like smoke. I took a step forward, then another, until we were inches apart. "Say it again," I said quietly. She didn't, but her hand found mine, fingers cold, shaking. "You should go," she whispered, "before I make this worse." But neither of us moved. The space between us wasn't a warning anymore. It was a decision waiting to happen. And both of us already knew which way it would go. The room had gone quiet again, except for the rain still clawing at the window. Her confession hung between us, fragile, suspended, impossible to take back. She hadn't moved since. Neither had I. "You should go," she said again, but it didn't sound like a command anymore. More like a plea she didn't believe in. I took a step closer. Her eyes flicked up, startled, not by me, but by herself. The lamplight cut across her face, tracing every line of exhaustion, every unspoken year she'd spent holding things in. I'd seen that look before, not in her, but in myself. That fear of wanting something that couldn't be justified out loud. "Tell me to stop," I whispered. She didn't. Her breath shuddered. The sound filled the space like a heartbeat. I reached out, fingers brushing the back of her hand. She didn't pull away, just looked down at where our skin met, as if watching a decision being written there. "This isn't fair," she said, voice trembling. "You still have time to choose different lives. I've already built mine. Then why does it feel like I'm already part of it?" Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she leaned forward, just slightly, not enough to close the distance, but enough to make every inch of space between us feel unbearable. "You don't understand," she murmured. "If this starts, it can't stay hidden. Then don't hide it." That broke something in her. Her eyes softened, tears just beginning to gather. She shook her head, almost smiling, a kind of surrender wrapped in disbelief. "You make everything sound so easy." "It isn't," I said. "It's just worth it." For a second, the world felt weightless, like time had given us permission. She stepped forward until her forehead rested against mine. I could feel her breath, warm and uneven, the scent of tea and rain, and something heartbreakingly human. Her hand rose to my face, trembling as she traced the edge of my jaw. The touch was careful, reverent, like she was memorizing something she'd already decided to lose. "If we do this," she whispered, "we don't come back." "Then don't come back." Her breath hitched, and then she kissed me. Not a perfect movie kiss. A real one, full of hesitation and release and years of silence breaking open. It lasted only a heartbeat before she pulled away, her eyes searching mine as if looking for an answer she already knew. "Now you understand," she said softly. I did. That it wasn't about what we could have, but what we finally admitted, that the wanting was real, the feeling was mutual, and the timing was impossible. She pressed her hand to my chest once, as if anchoring the moment there. Then she stepped back, voice low, steady again. Go home, she said. Before I forget how to be careful. I nodded, not because I wanted to, but because I finally understood her kind of love, the kind that saves you by breaking your heart first. The semester ended quietly. No final words, no drawn-out goodbye, just an empty classroom and the echo of everything we never said out loud. Weeks passed before I saw her again. I tried not to look for her, but habits don't fade that easily. Every time it rained, I thought of her window, the scent of her tea, the way she whispered things she didn't mean to say. It was late spring when she found me, at a cafe a few streets away from campus. She looked different somehow. Lighter. The kind of calm that comes after a storm has finally passed. I wasn't sure you'd still be here, she said. I wasn't sure you'd want me to be. She smiled then, small, uncertain. Maybe I did. We sat across from each other, two people who'd already lived a whole story in the space between silences. The past was still there, quiet but unashamed. He's gone, she said simply. Moved out. We're being honest again, just not with each other. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. Sometimes silence feels truer than comfort. She reached across the table, fingers tracing the rim of my coffee cup, stopping just before touching mine. Her voice dropped to something softer. I've spent so long being careful. You made me remember what it's like not to be. And now? Now I want to be brave, even if it's only for a moment. That was all it took. She leaned closer, the space between us shrinking until her hand finally covered mine, warm, steady, real. I could feel her pulse, and for the first time, either of us looked away. No grand declarations. No promises. Just the quiet certainty that what we had wasn't a mistake. It was a beginning we'd both been too afraid to name. We walked together after that, through streets still wet from a morning rain. She laughed once, a real laugh, the kind that shakes something loose inside you. I wanted to memorize the sound. At a corner where our paths were meant to split, she stopped. Turned toward me. You were never just a distraction, she said. You were the reminder that I still feel. I stepped closer, close enough that our foreheads touched. The city noise faded, replaced by the rhythm of two breaths finding each other again. Her hand slid into mine, no hesitation this time. Just warmth and quiet understanding. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. The way she leaned into me said enough, that we'd crossed from what if into what is, and neither of us wanted to step back. The rain began again, light and steady. She smiled up at me through it, eyes bright, alive. Walk me home? Always. And this time, I did.